If you watch enough YouTube photography channels, you can't help but have noticed how many of the protagonists are now sporting the Shimoda camera backpacks. Well, I've now gone and joined that illustrious club, but I hasten to add that I bought this bag with my own money. Now I know there's been quite a few reviews on this bag already, and most have been very positive. And whilst these bags are good, they're by no means perfect. So in this review, I'm going to be giving you what in my opinion is good about this bag, what's bad, and dare I say, what's ugly. Now then, good to be with you all again to my first video of 2021. Let's hope this year is a little bit better than last year. And so yeah, I've gone and bought the Shimoda Action X50. And this is to replace my existing f-stop Loca, with which I've been having difficulty fitting in all my non-camera gear, specifically my insulating layers and waterproofs. As part of my search for a new bag, I acquired the Mindshift Backlight 26 and 36 litre bags, which I also did a review on. And whilst both bags were great, neither were actually delivering what it was I was actually looking for, so I sent them both back. Specifically, what I wanted was a bag roughly the overall size of the 26 litre with its camera kit carrying capability, but with the non-camera kit carrying capability of the 36 litre. Also, I wanted a bag that could compress down when not full, but grow as needed, and was easy to work out of and comfortable to carry. And the Shimoda Action X50 goes a long way to meeting these needs, but it's by no means perfect. It's a little taller than the Mindshift 26 litre, but no bigger than my Loca when cinched down. Now this Shimoda shares some common features with my f-stop, which isn't surprising, as Ian Miller, the guy behind Shimoda, was also at one point the lead designer at f-stop. They're both rear opening and use removable ICUs, internal camera units or core units, depending upon whose bag you're talking about. Effectively what this means is that you buy an empty bag and then buy separately the ICU according to your needs and the bag's capability. The similarities between the two companies in this regard are such that I could even use my existing ICU from my f-stop bag within the Shimoda. Now the Action X series comes in three flavours, 30, 50 and 70 litre, and each share more or less the same basic design, though the 70 litre does come with more substantial straps and a couple of other tweaks. More on that later. As mentioned, I've gone for the 50 litre, and like the others, it's available in green and black. I went for the green because I felt it would show up the muck a lot less, but because the outer material is made of this nylon plasticky material, which is fairly smooth to the touch, it's very easy to keep clean. All it needs is a damp cloth to give it a wipe. The material used on the base of the bag has a more rugged feel and is nice and flat, which allows the bag to stand up on its own. In common with the Expedition series, no additional rain cover is provided with the bag. And so one could be forgiven for expecting that the bag is going to withstand the elements, to some degree at least. As yet, I've not had the opportunity to use this bag out in inclement weather, and so I can't offer my own experiences. But according to others, the bag affords good protection against the elements, although some have commented that they've experienced problems with water ingress. Offering a means to counter such problems, Ian Miller, remember the guy behind Shimoda, posted a video which was classed as a gear hack on a way to protect the contents of the bag from intense downpours. And this entailed using the plastic bag that the internal camera units are supplied in as a means to provide additional protection. The suggestion was to place the ICU within the said poly bag and then place both inside the camera bag. Now, whilst this might appear a sensible precaution in such conditions, it doesn't say much for the company's confidence in the bag's ability to withstand the elements. Nor is it clear what's meant by intense downpours. It can be all rather subjective. But here's a radical idea. Why not just provide an external rain cover as standard with the bag? After all, these bags aren't cheap and are sold as adventure bags, which means going out in all sorts of conditions. Okay, enough of that rant. Let's get back to the bag. Now, it has a very plain, simple design and is festooned with many straps and zipped areas. It has two grab handles, one on the top at the rear and another along one side. And these are nice and substantial, and unlike some others, don't cut into you. It's a shame though that they didn't put grab handles on both sides. There are loops on the base to take walking poles, etc., and various points around the bag through which you can attach either Shimoda's own accessory strap system or other third-party strap systems. There are adjustable straps on the upper and lower part of the bag, across the sides and across the front. The straps on the lower part of the sides are made of a rubberized material as opposed to the webbing material used for the rest, which provides extra grip and strength. But some have commented on the difficulty of cinching these straps up, especially with one hand. At this time, I've not had any issues, but then again, this is probably down to the fact that I haven't had any need to adjust these that often. The front straps pass through a centre loop, so that you can have two storage channels, though you can remove the straps from the loops so that there's a single wide channel to secure larger items. These front straps can also be fastened corner to corner should you wish, but there isn't much slack to facilitate bulky items in this configuration. Included with the bag is this helmet carrier, which fastens to the front of the bag. It could also be used to secure other items, including a jacket, especially when it's wet. The one downside to this helmet carrier is that you're left with a load of loose strapping that you have to then tidy up as best you can. One of the problems with some of the straps though is that they can impede the opening of some of the zip sections. For example, this upper strap gets in the way of the zip to this top compartment. It's not by much. You just have to either push the zip down behind the strap or unfasten the strap completely if you want to have full access to this area. When unzipped, you'll find that the compartment goes all the way down to the base of the bag. There's also an inner section to accommodate a water bladder with pass-through facility available for a tube to the outside of the bag. There are drain holes in the base of the main section, which will help if you spring a leak. So what can you fit in here? Well, I can get my insulating layer, my waterproof jacket, and if I ram it right down, I can also get my over trousers. But you'll notice that the front of the bag is now bulging because there's no elasticity in the fabric. It's a shame they didn't put a gusset round the edge to give it a little bit of expansion here. And with this amount of stuff in this bag, it's starting to pull a little bit at the seams, I think, so I wouldn't want to carry that amount of gear in that front pocket. At the top of this section there are these two pockets with semi-clear plastic fronts and zips at the top, and with the zips closed and being plastic, they'll afford some protection should there be some water ingress into the area. However, also being plastic, they don't have any stretch, so it could be a bit of a problem if you want to store awkward shaped items in there. You can fit a couple of batteries in each or other odds and ends as the mood takes you, although personally I prefer to have such things easy to hand in the main compartment. Now these pockets are a little difficult to get your hand in, again because there's no stretch, and some may prefer if this was one big pocket rather than two separate pockets. That way you could get maybe say travel documents in there, and if you wanted to, it wouldn't be that difficult to convert it to one pocket. The zip, whilst you have two zip heads, is actually just running on a single zip, and the stitching, well, you could quite easily unpick that yourself if you wanted to. Moving on up to the top of the bag, we have what is probably one of the most recognisable features of the bag, the roll top access, which allows the bag to expand to accommodate additional stuff and to be rolled down when carrying less stuff. And it's perhaps the main reason I went for this bag, from the practical side of things at least. But the look of the roll top design won't be to everybody's taste. And to be honest, I'm not personally a big fan of it either. Arguably, you could even say it looks a little ugly, especially when it sticks up like a giant handle. and it's claimed by many that this type of design provides better protection against the elements, which is maximised the more folds you have. But as you put more stuff into the bag, you're able to achieve fewer folds. And if the bag is too full, it can then become a little difficult to fasten the top. Now you can even gain access to the top of the bag by this zip at the front of the bag without having to unroll the top, which for most occasions will be more than sufficient and will make life a little bit easier. Now once inside this top section, you have this large inner sack made of light blue material, which extends partway down into the main lower section. There are also these two large mesh pockets, one each of the front and rear of the bag. In the rear one, there's also a loop for attaching your keys, but this is located at the base of the pocket. Normally, you'd expect to see these things attached to the top of the pocket so the keys hang down when the bag is upright. One problem with this sack and the pockets is that when you have a larger ICU within the main compartment, the sack just gets pushed up into the top as a big mass of material, which can then make it a little difficult to work with and finding things, even to the point of trying to work out which pocket is which amongst the mass of material. So I've taken to pushing this zip pocket nearest the front of the bag down behind the ICU to keep it out of the way, which also makes it a lot easier to use and also means that the other pocket sits flat atop the ICU, which, whilst potentially making it less usable, does make everything look neater as a result. However, it can become a bit of a tussle to get to this mesh pocket, which of course is where the loop for your keys is, especially when you have items in this top section. Interestingly, this whole upper sack section can be zipped out, leaving you with one big storage area. Now, as I said earlier, this top section was one of the main reasons I bought this bag. So what can you fit in here? I can happily get my insulating layer, my waterproof jacket, over trousers, lighter mid layer and sandwich box, and still have some room for other bits and bobs. Now moving on to the sides, we have on each these zips which give access to these stowable mesh pockets into which you could put the feet of your tripod legs or water bottle or anything else you care to throw in there. In order to stop the pocket flapping around, you can use the loop on its front and then pass the lower strap through it in order to secure it. Now this mesh pocket design is an interesting approach, but it has one significant flaw. The zips to gain access to the mesh pockets open from the front of the bag towards the back. Then, having unfurled the pockets, the zip head is then blocked by the mesh pocket itself, but at the opposite end, towards the front of the bag, there's now this gap, which, if it's raining, will potentially allow water to penetrate into the compartment behind. Now the daft thing about this is that it wouldn't have been that difficult to have rectified. Shimoda could have either just put a storm flap over the zip, or they could have simply put the zip the other way round, opening from the back to the front. Then, when the pocket was unfurled, you'd have been able to move the zip head back towards the pocket, providing some degree of protection at least. Ideally, you'd want both solutions. Now on each side are these panels, and opening the one on the left as you look at it from the front, again having to unfasten a strap to gain access to it. This one reveals a storage pocket with a clear plastic front, and again the same issues as I talked about with the pockets on the front of the bag apply. Clearish, you can see more or less what's in there, but the plastic doesn't have any stretch, so any awkward items that you might want to put in those pockets might be difficult to accommodate. Originally I did intend to put my power bank in there, but when I noticed the issues with potential water ingress, I thought better of it. And with the mesh pockets unfurled, you've got complete access, and this panel is in line with the opening, so you certainly don't want to keep anything of value in this side pocket if it's raining. Now it's a shame that they didn't put bellows on the side of these pockets, that way you could have put more into these side pockets. On the opposite side, when you open the panel, again unfastening the strap in order to open it, you have access to the inner camera compartment, and if you've got a compatible ICU, you'll be able to unzip the side panel of that to gain access to your camera kit. You can, if you wish, then tuck the flap of the ICU inside this opening. Also on this side of the bag, there is no pass-through from the area where the mesh pocket is stored to the inside of the bag. Moving to the back of the bag, first thing to talk about are the shoulder straps, which again are probably one of the bag's most recognisable features, with their broad pouches on the front. And on the left strap we have this zipped compartment, which is nicely padded and is capable of taking a smartphone. My iPhone 7 fits in there quite nicely, although I'm not sure a plus size phone would go in there. And on the right strap we have this zipped compartment, which is expandable and is capable of taking a water bottle. This pouch can even accommodate my power bank, and should I need to, I can then route a cable from it around the straps to the other pouch in order to charge my phone whilst hiking, when it's dry at least. As you see, there are a number of loops and hoops on the straps to fasten things to, and you'll also notice that I have my Peak Design capture bracket fastened to the strap, which goes on just fine. One notable feature of the straps is that they're capable of being adjusted for the height of your torso, or even removed and replaced. The top of the straps attach to the bag via these thin loops with Velcro. You just unfasten the Velcro and move the straps to the other loops to adjust their height. Or if you're removing them, you just unfasten the lower end of the straps from the main bag. Now the straps themselves don't have a lot of padding, but nevertheless they're very comfortable, assisted no doubt by the broad area. And others have commented that it feels as if the bag is hugging you. Personally, I wouldn't go as far as that, but their size does seem to provide additional support. Now, I haven't used this bag yet in warm conditions, but one thing I note is that the reverse of the straps don't really seem to have much in the way of wicking capability, and the reverse of these broad pouches could therefore become warm and sweaty. In common with most other backpacks, you get a sternum strap, and in this case there's a whistle built into the buckle, and the straps are adjustable for height, although it can be a bit tight on the runners. And as I mentioned earlier, the straps are replaceable, and in addition to the standard straps that I've got, there is a plus size strap which comes as standard with the 70 litre, and that has more padding and is capable of taking more weight. Also, it looks as if there's more wicking on those straps. Additionally, and fairly uniquely amongst bag manufacturers, there are 3 straps available specifically for the female form. 2 of these straps forego the pouches and are of a slimmer style, but all have twin sternum straps. When ordering, at least from the manufacturer, you can specify one of the female straps as a no-cost option. Now moving down to the waist belt, it too can be removed, which might be handy if you want to travel with less bulk. The belt passes beneath the padding of the rear panel and is held in place again by Velcro, but it can be a bit of a faff to get back in, so I won't demonstrate it. The waist belt, as you see, is split along the middle, which is designed to provide better support on the hips, as the upper and lower sections are able to move independently. And yeah, I have to say, it does feel comfortable to use. Towards the front of the belt are these small loops or handles, which are designed supposedly for ice picks, but I found that I can easily put the leg of my small tripod in there and walk around with it quite comfortably. Now at the very front of the belt are these stretchy little pockets, which, to be frank, I've not really found a use for, although some people have said that they found it useful for putting their sweet wrappers in, so yeah, maybe. Now one of the problems I have is with the belt buckle, and for some reason, don't know why, I often when I come to fasten it up, I just seem to get half the buckle into the opening. I have real difficulty getting it lined up. And I don't know whether it has something to do with the fact that these ends are open or not, unlike my f-stop, which is fully enclosed. But yeah, it's just something that I keep having a little bit of a niggle with, but it's not a big issue. Now when I first saw these bags, I wasn't sure whether this back panel was of a rigid plastic or a soft spongy material. It is in fact very squishy, but also easy to damage, so much so that this is actually my second bag. The first, when it arrived, had a load of dents in it caused, presumably, by the belt buckles digging into the fabric during transportation and storage. So you do have to be careful how you handle and store this bag. Now the back panel, the channels to allow the airflow aren't all that deep really, apart from at the very base of the bag, so I'm not quite sure how it's going to fare in warmer conditions. Other people have said it's okay, but nothing too special. Now, getting into the main compartment again requires the navigation around a strap. This one connecting the strap to the main body of the bag. But luckily it's connected by a magnet. And it's an annoyance, but no big deal really. And often when I'm just travelling short distances, I don't bother fastening it. But sometimes with all the jiggling around of the bag, I then find that it's reconnected itself. Once unzipped via these chunky zips, the panel opens book style along the longer edge rather than the traditional short end along the base like most bags. I wasn't sure whether I'd get on with this, but actually I think I'm now a convert. On standard openings, where you have the storage pocket on the reverse, if you haven't closed up these pockets, you often find stuff falling out when you open the access panel, especially when the bag is on a raised platform, rock, bench, etc., and the panel flops down. But with this side hinge, I found that the panel sits nice and level with the opening and can even act as a platform to place items on. Obviously, if you have something heavy in the storage sleeve, then it will drop down further, but it still doesn't get to the ground. Now, the storage sleeve itself is designed to take a laptop, but of course it depends on what laptop you have as to whether it will fit or not. My old 2013 15-inch MacBook Pro fits in here, but only if I don't use the protective hard shell that I normally have on it. With that on, there's no way it'll fit. And even when I do get my laptop in the sleeve, there's a fair amount exposed, which means when the lid is closed, the laptop could get knocked, scraped, etc. by items within the bag, and so some form of additional protection might be needed. Now apparently the 16-inch MacBook also doesn't fit into the sleeve, and the workaround is to use the front compartment, which of course doesn't have any padding. Okay, onto the main compartment of the bag, which, as I said earlier, is just an empty void as standard, and there are certain advantages and disadvantages with the removable ICU approach. It allows you to tailor the bag to your own needs and to have different core units for different purposes, and easily swap them out. You can also, should need a rise at an airport, remove the core unit and check the bag and just carry on the core unit itself. Though I have to say that I haven't yet used the Shimoda for air travel. And Shimoda provide a zipped carry case with each core unit, which might be useful for such purposes and which are very easy and light to store. However, these are more dust covers than protective covers as they don't have any padding, unlike the f-stop ICUs. The carry case for the small core unit even comes with a strap, so you could, if you wanted to, use it as a shoulder bag for your camera. However, having a separate ICU does have some disadvantages. It adds weight and you have to factor in the additional cost, which can be expensive the bigger the ICU you have. Now, the size of bag dictates which core units you can use in which bag. If you get the 30 litre, you're restricted to using the medium mirrorless and small core units. The 50 litre is compatible with those items, plus the medium DSLR and large DSLR core units. The medium DSLR and small core units, that combination that I've gone with, gives about the same storage area as the large core unit. But of course, with the larger ICU, you also are able to carry longer lenses. But I wanted the flexibility to be able to remove one of the core units and travel lighter and compact the bag down as the need arose. But if I do need to, I can also move the small core unit up into the top of the bag and slot items between the two units. Now, the core units, like most of the camera bags, can be tailored to your own needs using dividers. And the dividers with the Shimoda are fairly thin and flexible, which provides advantages and disadvantages. Being thinner, they take up less space, potentially making more space available in the bag, and can mold themselves to your kit to a degree. However, they can also sag if too much weight is loaded onto them. One gripe I do have, however, is the limited number of dividers you actually get. The default configuration of the medium DSLR core unit is slightly different from the medium mirrorless and large core units by having two wide sections and a third thin section along one side, utilising narrow dividers rather than the three wider sections, which is somewhat limiting. To get a similar layout, I had to take dividers from my small core unit and double up some of the narrow dividers. Now you can buy a set of additional dividers, but the specs don't even let you know how many or what size are included in the set. And again, the core units aren't cheap, so I think they could be a little bit more generous in the number of dividers they actually provide. So within the small core, I have my EOS R with the 24-105 lens attached. My Olympus EM1 Mark II resides down this side, usually with the 12-100 attached. Both cameras are stored on their sides and sport an L bracket. I prefer to have my cameras on their sides as it's more space friendly. I then have my filter pouch in the centre and space for about 4 lenses, depending upon my needs for the shoot. Currently I have my 16-35 EF lens with the RF adapter attached, my 24 tilt shift lens, my 8-18 Panasonic Leica Micro Four Third lens and my 75mm Olympus Micro Four Third lens, plus a blower and cloths. My filter adapter and step-up rings occupy the section in the small unit. With some reconfiguration, I can also fit in the EOS R fitted with the EF 70-200 and RF adapter. Now, one of the problems with the Shimoda, and it's the same with the f-stop, is the inner metal frame that runs around the bag to give it extra rigidity. The core unit sits just underneath the frame and means that it's difficult at times to get full access to items around the edge of the core unit without having to play around with the bag. Though unlike the f-stop, you don't need to fasten the core unit to the frame. This access problem is more noticeable though at the top of the main section. It curves around, which means that it's difficult to both see and access things that might be underneath that part of the bag. So what do I think in general of the bag then? Well, considering what my initial needs were, it's comfortable to carry, it accommodates all my kit, including my camera and non-camera kit, it's reasonably compact, no bigger than my Loca when cinched down, and can grow to accommodate more gear, making it both flexible and adaptable. And from these shots you can see how the bag sits whilst being carried. For information, I'm about 6'2". The shot on the left is with the upper section cinched down fully, and the right is with it fully loaded. The only area where the bag I suppose doesn't fully meet all of my needs is ease of working out of. The frame, as we've seen, can impede access in parts, and having to faff around undoing straps in order to gain access to zip compartments is a little irritating. Also, some of the pockets with their lack of flex aren't the best I've used, which doesn't bother me too much as I've started using pouches such as these, which are actually travel accessories, and they're for your toiletries, but they make great storage solution for such things as your batteries. And being thin, they slide in nicely into the laptop sleeve, and because they don't have the word photography in them, they're a lot cheaper. And whilst there are a number of other issues with the bag, these to me aren't necessarily insurmountable, and are after all only what I consider to be issues. No bag is perfect for everyone. And I recognise when I was looking for a new bag that I'd probably end up having to make some compromises. You just have to work out what it is you're willing to compromise on. Overall though, for me, the benefits outweigh the disadvantages. The flexibility and comfort that this bag affords me makes it a worthy purchase, albeit not cheap. Well, I hope that's been of use to some of you. Apologies for what has become a very long video, but I wanted to ensure that I covered as many points as possible. But if there is anything that I missed out that you think might be of use for others, then please do add a comment below. Also, if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, that's it for now. So until next time, thank you ever so much for watching. Take care, stay safe, look after yourself. TTFN, that's out for now.